It's time to play ball. Welcome to the podcast with no limits. Whether it be sports, current events, or random thoughts, this is the place to step in and stay a while. Your host is a proud alumnus of Rio Hondo Prep, a former minor league baseball umpire, and a man with strong opinions. Welcome to the Get Home Safe podcast and your host, Matt Hersema.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Get Home Safe. It is a Friday edition of the podcast, and I have a very special guest for you guys today. We've had on this program pretty much all of the Carson family. My good friend Todd Carson has been on here multiple times, head football coach of Rio Hondo Prep. Mark Carson has been on here weekly during the football season, and I've had a nice episode I did with Pastor Dave Carson Jr. That was a lot of fun talking about Kare Youth League and expansion and everything. But today we're going to be joined by their father, Dave Carson Sr., someone who has been so influential in Kare Youth League and has raised not only three amazing young men, but two daughters as well in Christina Horton and Melissa. What is Melissa's last name? Melissa Thomas. Excuse me. Sorry about that, man. Thought I was ready for the show. Anyway, Melissa Carson, now Melissa Thomas, Christina Carson, now Christina Horton. Anyway, I think I have all that straight now, but we're going to be joined today by Dave Carson Sr. An absolute honor to chat with this man. I can't wait to get into this. So let's jump into it right away. My long form conversation with the head of the Carson family, Mr. Dave Carson Sr. All right. It's a tremendous honor today to be joined by Dave Carson Sr. I've already talked about him being the head of the Carson family. Mr. Carson, welcome to the Get Home Safe podcast.
Well, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Mr. Carson, I've talked to each of your three sons, Dave just the one time, and then Mark and Todd obviously a couple times. Still working on maybe daughter's coming on, but have you heard your sons here on the podcast?
I don't think I heard Dave. I've heard Todd and Mark, and I'm wondering what Mark had to say Monday after the game.
Yeah, it's fun talking to Mark on Mondays here during the football season, because he's very fired up. I know you're very proud of him for the great work he has done. And I'm going to have you talk about each of your kids individually at some point. But, I mean, how cool is it to have one of your sons be the head coach of Rio Hondo Prep football?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
We're proud of him. And not just the position, but I love the way he handles his teams. Not that I'm a football guru or anything, but I've seen him after a loss go out there and hit guys on the shoulder and congratulate them and so forth. And I just think he does a great job, that kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely. And, I'm sure he's learned a thing or two from you over the years. And then, of course, his wonderful older brothers that have, that's not to take anything away from Mark. He's done an incredible job with the program. Now, Mr. Carson, outside of listening to your sons a little bit here on the podcast, have you heard some other episodes here the past year or so?
Yeah, I heard John Lee. I heard Pat Taylor. Who else might I have heard? I typically don't tune in unless I know the person.
No, I understand that totally. I've had some people on that I find interesting that I didn't realize when I started this that it would be so many Kare Youth League and Rio Hondo stories, but a lot of people love listening to kind of the journey really of people starting in Kare and kind of where they ended up.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Well, happy to hear it. We have a little background noise, but we're gonna fight through it today. That's what we do. Nothing goes perfect all the time. So, Mr. Carson, let's talk about you and kind of where you grew up and how you discovered this great place called Boys Christian League.
I'm pleased to hear you call it Boys Christian League. Was it ever Boys Christian League while you were in it?
No, sir.
Okay, well, I just wondered about that. I was born in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I grew up in Littleton, which is just a few miles outside of Denver. Its claim to fame is it's the home of Columbine High School. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's too bad. And I had a great childhood. One little story that may be of some interest. I don't know why, but I tell this every time I get a chance. There is a stream of water called the Denver Ditch. That's what we call it, because it was headed toward Denver as it passed us. Probably 3 or 4 feet deep and 6 or 8 feet wide. And my friend and I used to go down there and just explore and so forth. And one day we saw looked like a dead animal laying by the side of the ditch. And our curiosity got the better of us. We went down to see what it was. And lo and behold, it was a dead skunk. And we thought, wouldn't it be fun to take this home and show our parents? So I think we tied a string or something around it. We didn't have to touch it, but I drove that home and showed it to my mom and dad, and they were not pleased.
Yeah.
Get that thing out of here. I couldn't quite understand why they reacted so strongly, but they made me take it to the vacant lot next door and bury it. And that's my Littleton, Colorado story. We moved to California from Colorado when I was about 3rd or 4th grade. And for those of you who might know, first I went to Columbia School in El Monte, and then to Clemenson School, also in El Monte. No, I guess that's in Temple City. But then they built a new school, Rio Hondo, right by my house, really just a block or two away, Rio Hondo Elementary School. And that's where I ended up going to school. And one day, a rumor started on the playground that somebody was building a ball field down at the end of Farna Avenue. Well, we all wanted to play ball. They wouldn't let us play baseball on the school grounds and so forth. So one afternoon, 8 or 10 of us walked down to what is now Kare Youth League. At that point, it was just a wasteland of weeds and so forth. But there was, they were building a ball field over in over by where the golf course is now. So we started walking over there, and Francis Ostegard came walking up. He was kind of a reddish, red-haired guy, wore a quirky green ball cap, and he came over and introduced himself to us and began to tell us about Boys Christian League. Well, at that time, there was hardly any Little League. There was nothing organized for us to be doing. So as he told us about Boys Christian League, uniforms and games every week and outings and trips to the beach and so forth, well, to me, I'm not sure how the other guys were reacting, but it sounded like heaven. We got to join this thing. But then he said something that really surprised me and kind of took me back. As you know, Matt, and as our name implies, Boys Christian League, we're very definitely a Christian organization, and teach our youngsters that the Christian way is the best way and so forth. And at that time, the entryway into a bad life was the use of bad language. When I was in 6th grade, you started using swear words and talking about dirty things and so forth. That was kind of the entrance. It was very macho, and naturally that's headed the wrong direction. Well, Francis Ostegard said, the one thing you got to know about Boys Christian League is we don't allow any swearing here. Well, 2 thoughts went through my head. The first one was, this guy certainly doesn't know boys, because if he knew boys, he would never make a statement like that. But the second thought was, if he can deliver on that promise and stop me from swearing, help me stop from swearing, I'm really interested, because I knew my parents didn't approve, and I knew that society in general didn't approve a guy my age using that bad language. So we joined up. Well, as you can know from your own association with Boys Christian League and Kare Youth League, swearing was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
We had we'll call club meeting, a Bible study, Bible lesson, Bible story every week, and Mr. Ostergaard drew lessons from that to teach us about the right way to live. And so swearing was the tip of the iceberg, but I can still remember the club meeting I was in when he made, I don't know, told some story or something, but I said, okay, I'll never say another swear word as long as I live. And I've been able to keep that promise except once. And that was, I ended up going to Rosemead High School. And there was some swear word that was just everywhere. Everybody was saying it. And I went out for basketball and I got bumped or something like that. And I found myself using that swear word. And I said, oh, this is not a good thing. But anyway, we started having, I can still remember the first club meeting I was in. There were no buildings at that time. And so we met in a old blue and white bus that somebody had used as a traveling fruit and vegetable thing. And he started with the very beginning, with Genesis. And he tried to explain to us the difference between men, that is mankind, and animals. We had a choice, so forth. And I can remember because I looked out the window and there was a big lizard sitting right there. And so I got the point. Okay, there's an animal. I'm a boy. I have a choice. That animal lives on instinct or whatever. And that's how I got started at Boys Christian League. We all joined and formed the club called Coral. In those days, the clubs were all named after bodies of water. And so we became the Coral Sharks.
So of those original members, first of all, how many guys were there for this original team of Boys Christian League, and who are some of the names we might recognize?
Well, there were 9 or 10 of us, and I don't think he'd recognize any of the names, because when we finished 8th grade, they all dropped out, went off to Royal High School, and I was left alone. The one guy that stuck around for a little while, his name was Fred Williams. Some of your listeners may remember Fred Williams. And he and I, we stay in touch and so forth, but the rest of us, I've kind of lost track of them, and they probably lost track of me. So they were not my peer group after 8th grade.
Well, I mean, did you have any, I mean, you're a junior high kid, we don't have much thought for vision and future at that age, but could you have, I mean, in your wildest dreams, or is there any way you could have envisioned what Boys Christian League would become down the road, Kare Youth League and Rio Hondo Prep? I mean, going down to that same property now, 5150, and seeing, I mean, really the miracle of what it has all become. And it started with that meeting down at the end of Farna Avenue back in whatever year that was.
No, there's no way to imagine, because I think there was only 3 teams in the whole organization. There was Coral, and Atlantic, and Indian, and one age level. And so it was hard to imagine that it was going to be what it is today. But I feel a privilege of having been there ever since that time up until now and watched it grow and so forth.
Very, very neat. So you said you went to Rosemead High School. You played basketball. Did you play other sports there?
Yes, I played baseball and basketball. And didn't do very well in either one of them. I was just a freshman, and I was at the same time going to Kare Youth League or Boys Christian League. And so my heart wasn't in it out at Rosemead, and my heart was more in playing at Boys Christian League. So
Gotcha.
After Rosemead, Arroyo opened, and then I went to Arroyo.
Oh, okay. Both schools. Okay, that's school across the wash. So
yeah.
Interesting. So when you were in high school, Boys Christian League was still like a team even for high schoolers?
Well, the guys that I began to meet and become friends with were the ones you've talked with: Pat Taylor, John Lee, and Gary Lenny, and who else? Who else I got on this list here? Oh, Bill Oisburn. Yeah. And Mr. Hampton knew to keep us going in the right direction. We had to be playing ball. And it was true. We had to be playing ball. So he turned us into a team and scheduled games with us around, and we played baseball together all the way through college.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mr. Carson, I got to know, I asked Mr. Taylor this a little bit, but what can you tell me about some of those guys and the type of athletes they were? Pat Taylor, Mr. Orsburn, Gary Lunny, John Lee. I heard them talk about it briefly, but what are your memories of them on the ball field?
Well, let us start by saying we were never that good, any of us, you know. But I think of those that you named, I think Pat Taylor was probably the better ball player. He played shortstop, and he was good at shortstop. And I think he did pretty well hitting. Bill Orsman played center field, and he got good at it. He'd catch a ball, and his claim to fame was how fast he could get rid of it, because our coach, Mr. Hampton, said, you got to get rid of that ball, got to get it in the home plate. And so he learned to really get rid of it quickly. John Lee and Gary Lenny, they were both pitchers. John Lee was a good pitcher, Gary Lenny was a good pitcher, and they were my competitors because I was a pitcher. And I don't know, I shouldn't say we weren't that good. We beat Doherty High School, and we ended up playing college, played against Azusa Pacific and so forth. Yeah. Sometimes we'd win, played against Caltech. Always enjoyed playing Caltech because they were not very good. We beat them. But yeah, we were probably better than average athletes, I would say, but nothing spectacular.
And to me, the whole concept of Boys Christian League and now Kare Youth League, I think the vision that Mr. Hampton had was that, you know, boys needed a place to go be boys, and for most kids, most boys, they love sports, getting out there and competing, and, you know, getting dirty and this and that. So, is that kind of what you thought, Mr. Hampton? I mean, it really is a genius idea to come up with a youth sports league that is there to, spread the gospel and to really make kids better people, not just giving them all these sports opportunities. But was the draw of having sports kind of what brought kids in and what kept people interested?
Definitely, yes. And the interesting thing is, when Mr. Hampton started the program, he wasn't playing sports. He was doing things more along the lines of Boy Scouts and so forth. But the guys that he had said, we want to play sports. And so he got the message, and from then on, it's always been the organization's built around team sports. And definitely, that's why I came. I wanted to play baseball, and they gave me a place to play, and gave me a place to play throughout my high school and college. And yeah, it's definitely. And the concept, it doesn't seem so profound to me now, joining the athletics with the character development, but in a way, it was a stroke of genius because I don't know who else does it like we do.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think that anybody does. And it's not just sports. That's a great thing about it is they do offer, fun activities like camps and sleepovers and all these great outings and things too. But the sports is the foundation. I mean, and it's almost like built in for character building because in sports, there's winners, there's losers, there's practicing, getting better, improving, all those things to sports. And it's kind of like this symbolism for a spiritual journey as well.
Well, exactly. I write proposals to foundations trying to get money. And one of the things I'm fond of saying is early on, we discovered that sports is the perfect vehicle for doing the kind of things you're talking about, helping boys spiritually and so forth. So, yeah, you're exactly right.
Did I hear this correctly? Was Kare Youth League or Boys Christian League, excuse me, were they the first organization in California to play tackle football?
Yeah. First ones to play tackle football. And interestingly, when we started football, Mr. Hampton went down to the Voight company. Does Voight ring a bell with you? Do you know who Voight was or is? Maybe they're still in existence. But they manufactured sporting goods. And he went down there and asked them to make a football that was small enough for youngsters to handle.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That football sat up in the Indian Club room in their trophy case there for years and years and years. But somebody who didn't know its significance apparently threw it away because it's gone now. But that was, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. We were the first to tackle football. And then soon thereafter, we joined up with Pop Warner. And Mr. Hampton was actually the commissioner for Southern California, Pop Warner, for a while. And we did well there.
That is really cool. That is really, really cool. I'm a big football guy, and that was one of the main reasons I got involved in Kare Youth League because I saw a kid carrying a whole helmet and shoulder pads at school one day when I was in second grade, and I told my dad, I want to go play tackle football, and he was all about it. So that is so awesome to hear. After high school, Mr. Carson, you said you stuck with the group and you still played some ball in college, but was there any doubt that you were going to go anywhere else, that you were committed to helping out this organization and continue to develop it?
No doubt whatsoever. In your notes, you said, talked about a calling to Kare Youth League. I cannot identify a specific calling like Pat Taylor does. But it was just a natural thing for me to do, to follow this group and to follow Mr. Hampton, Mr. Ostergaard, and what they were trying to do. It just seemed like the natural thing for me to do, and so I did it. Never any question.
Wow, that is. I think a lot of people when they graduate high school, they're not sure what to do. I know I wasn't. I was involved for a while there at Kare Youth League, but for you and your experiences, there was just no doubt. Now, outside of coaching kids, what other interests did you have maybe as far as a career path? Did you go to college? I mean, I know you went to college, but what did you study in college?
Well, my first year at PCC, I had a really good Comp 1A teacher. And she, one way or another, convinced me that I wanted to study English and be an English teacher. So that's the career path I took. I graduated from UCLA from the English department and have tried to be a good English teacher at times at Rio Hondo. I think I'm terrible compared to the teachers that are there now. I listen to my own daughter who now teaches at Rio Hondo, teaches English. Boy, what she's helping those students do is just 100 miles beyond what I was doing. I had one gift, and that was to get excited about reading. And I'd get all the students to get a book, get any book you want, library, get whatever you want, and then you need to read some every day. And we start class by saying, okay, how many pages did you read, and you read, and you read? And I'd arrange them sitting in the class according to how many pages they read. And very successful. It had that little competitive element. Chris Horton and John Martin were in those classes, and I think Chris Horton would say it helped him become the English major that he became.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then your daughter Christina Horton, who I had the privilege of being a student of hers in multiple classes, and I don't know how she did it, but she helped me pass British literature. She does a great work and been there a long time. So that's where she got her passion from. Maybe is the fact that her old man was an English teacher.
Well, that reminds me of something I wanted to say maybe at the end. One time, Francis Ostigard said to me, and maybe it wasn't only me, that if God wants you to do something and you follow through and do it, which was for me being at Kare Youth League, your children will do all the things that you may feel like you missed out on. So Christina became an English teacher. Dave became a pastor and a speaker. Todd, well, he's on his way back to Real Hunt. I'm so glad when he finally gets here next year. But as a coach, and he's starting a small business. I always wanted to start a small business. In fact, I started one that worked out for a while. And then Mark, coaching youngsters, naturally he's the coach. And then I had this interest in politics. And lo and behold, my daughter ends up working in the White House. So Mr. Ostigard's prediction really came true for me. And the other interesting thing is I was thinking about this, is anytime I'm in a hospital, it seems like I've been in several now, I say, I think I would have liked to have studied medicine and been a doctor. Well, none of the children went that route, but I'm married to a nurse. So
no, it's all connected. It's amazing.
Yeah.
There's definitely some divine intervention there for sure. That is incredible. I didn't know that about you. Yeah, God gives you the desires of your heart, but I've never heard it put that way, that he'll give it to your children, maybe things you can't necessarily do. That is awesome to hear. Well, you mentioned Mrs. Carson. How did you meet her, and when did you guys get married? Oh, that's her calling.
That's Melissa calling. Let me tell her to.
All right, I'll pause. Okay, so yeah, Mr. Carson, where did you meet the future Mrs. Carson?
Well, there was a high school and college group for boys and girls, young men and young women, called Fosterians. And it was a Sunday evening, I don't know what you call it, Sunday evening church type group. Well, when I graduated from 8th grade, Mr. Ostigard invited me to come and be part of that. So I said, okay, I'll come. And we met down there in what is now, used to be the weight room, used to be called the main club room. We went down there, and I saw this young lady. I mean, I was only in 9th grade, and she was in probably 11th grade. But I thought she was the prettiest thing I'd ever seen. And that was Marian Carson. The funny thing is, as outgoing as she has always been and so forth, she took it upon herself to make sure I felt welcome at Fosterians. Well, I'd walk down there from home. I just lived a couple blocks away, and she'd be kind of waiting there to meet me, and kind of embarrassing for me, and especially if I was late, and she said, or if I missed a meeting, where were you last week, and so forth. So I kind of got a little bit of afraid of her, and I would actually come late to Fosterians so I wouldn't have to talk to her. So that's where we first met. We ended up going to UCLA together, she as a nursing student, I as an English major. And we drive over there together. So naturally, I got much better acquainted with her. And that's how we got together.
Very cool. You weren't afraid of her anymore, huh? When you were driving to UCLA?
No. But I still thought she was extra pretty.
There you go. There you go. That is awesome.
A little interesting story about that you might be interested in hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
We lived in the same apartment building, different parts of the apartment. I lived with Gary Lenny and Pat Taylor and so forth, and she lived with her friends. And she had a cat that she just loved. And I knew she loved it because we'd go over there and visit once in a while, and she just loved that cat. Well, one day I was walking down the field and found that cat dead in the gutter. Oh. What was I going to do? Well, I couldn't just go home and tell her. That seemed heartless. So I took the cat and buried it somewhere. But then, within the next couple of days, I went and got her a new baby kitten and put it in a box and wrote a note from her cat. I don't remember the name of her cat, saying I had to take a long trip, but here's somebody to take my place. I hope you enjoy having him. And I don't know if there was any romantic feeling developing at that time. Maybe so on her part, not so much on mine. But she called that little kitten Dearie. And maybe I should have known. So that was Dearie.
Great story. Hey, that's a smooth move, Mr. Carson, doing the right thing there and placing the kitten. Okay, see, you never know where the spark might come from. That is awesome. So what year were you guys married? Not to put you on the spot here. I know husbands.
Yeah. Well, 2 or 3 years ago, we had our 50th anniversary.
Wow. So
you can figure it out from there.
There you go. That's totally fine. Sorry, didn't mean to get you in trouble. Well, that is very, very cool. I know I say this about a few people, but she really is one of the nicest women on the planet, nicest people. Every time you see her, she's smiling. If you were injured, you go to the nurse's office. Mrs. Carson was always there for you.
Yeah.
Scraped knee or, you're sick or whatever. So, yeah, I know you know this. What a wonderful person. I love hearing Todd and Mark and all the siblings talk about the parents, but especially Mrs. Carson, because she is so wonderful. And every time I'd go over on Saturdays to hang out with Mark, watch football or whatever, you guys were always so kind, and Mrs. Carson always went, how's everything going? And just everything was here with her, and I'm sure she's always had that.
Oh yes, still the same.
Still the same. So Ms. Carson, I have a question. I know that a few of your peers, I heard from Pat Taylor. I'm not sure about John Lee, but anyway, I know that a lot of Kare Youth League leaders, especially the original members, a lot of them did serve in the military and usually drafted or whatever. What was the time frame for you there? Did any military service pop up for you? I actually don't know.
Well, we were all called down to UCLA to pass the physical exam to be drafted. Vietnam was in full force, and if you passed the physical, you were going. But when I was a very, very young child, maybe 2 years old, I stuck a scissors in my eye. And that eye has never been quite right. So they looked at me and said, this guy won't be a very good rifleman or whatever. And they turned me down. So I didn't end up going into the military.
Oh, wow. And you said, I'm sorry, you said it was an injury to your eye?
Yeah. Yeah. And if next time you see each other, if you want to look at it, it's you can tell something's wrong with that eye.
Oh, okay.
And as a matter of fact, today I'm going to see an eye doctor because I got to get a cataract removed out of there. I can barely see out of it now. But yeah, and that reminds me of, you want to hear the dumbest thing I ever did?
Well, go right ahead.
It's connected with my eye.
Oh, no.
we used to, my friend Johnny and I used to have BB guns, and we'd go around the neighborhood shooting things and so forth. And we got in the backyard, and there was a swing set there. And we wondered if we shoot a BB in this end of the pipe that holds up the swing set, will it come out the other end and hit the garage? Well, so we try it, and we bang and shoot the BB. No sound to hit the garage. And we tried again, no sound to hit the garage. And I wondered, well, what could be stopping it in there, because we couldn't hear anything. So I said, okay, John, I'll look in the pipe, and you shoot, and I'll see if I can see that BB. Well, that BB went straight into my forehead, just above my eye. Had it hit me in the eye, I'd be short an eye right now, I'm sure. But that, I look back on that and I say, how could I have been that dumb? That's the thinking. I could see that BB coming in. So anyway.
Well, we've all done a crazy thing or two.
Yeah.
Especially boys will be boys, I guess. Mr. Carson, you had some peers. You weren't able to be drafted, but you had some friends who I'm sure, went over there to Vietnam. And what was that like for you? I don't know, waiting for, news didn't travel as fast as it does these days. Was it stressful knowing that your friends were potentially in harm's way and you're just kind of waiting around hoping that they get home?
Yes, it was. And the particular guy that fits that description was Gary Lundy. Gary Lundy was a musician and I was the English major. So we used to write plays, musical plays that they'd put on the trips and so forth. And when he went to Vietnam, we still wanted to get a play done. And he would write music over there in Vietnam, almost virtually in a foxhole. It was just amazing to me. Wow. And I'd been working on the play at home. And he said that I wrote him a letter every day that he was there. I don't know if I did that, but I know I wrote him frequently because he was a real buddy. And I was always worried that he might not make it home because he was not, he was right in the thick of it. He was a platoon sergeant and he had to lead guys out on patrol. And he's told me stories that sound very scary. Well, they were scary about that time. And so the others, not so much. Bill Orsburn ended up at an office in Washington, D.C. while he was in the Army. And so we would go see him on the trip. It just seemed like he was having a pretty good life. And Pat Taylor, let's see, what did he do? I don't remember. I'm sure I shouldn't have forgotten that. But anyway, Gary Lundy and I were the ones, and we always said we were going to write the big one. But if we write just one Broadway play, we'd be set for life.
That's it.
Never came close. But one quick story. When for a while he was in charge of the concession stand, you probably got French fries and so forth out of that concession stand.
Yeah, time.
Yeah. And then when he went into the Army, they put me in charge of the concession stand. Well, he came on leave one time, and at about 10 o'clock one night, I was just starting cleaning up the concession stand, and it was at least an hour and a half job, and it was late at night and so forth. And so he walked by and he said, well, I'll see you tomorrow. And about 3 minutes later, he came back and he says, I can't leave this to you by yourself. I'll help you. And he helped me do cleanup. That's the kind of guy he was. Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Gary Lundy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just an incredible person. And yeah, I read his book about his service.
In
Vietnam.
Yeah.
The things he probably experienced was just unfathomable to us. And I know he was a very special person. He was a great football coach, a great teacher. And you were someone, Mr. Carson, that I remember you took the time to really be there for him in his last few years, that always stuck out to me. As I remember asking Todd, like, oh, your dad is spending time with Gary Lunny. He says, yeah, they're lifelong friends. And Mr. Lunny, I think, was in a wheelchair. And that always spoke to me about what true friendship really was, to see your interaction with Gary. So what can you tell me about those late years of his life, since he passed away a few years ago, but just your relationship with him later in life?
Well, it was a great relationship. I always had to be the initiator because he was wheelchair bound or whatever. But I would go out to see him and push him around the park there by his house, and we'd talk. He loved poetry, and so he would memorize poetry, and he and I would try to remember it and say it, whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. And so we do a lot of that, just a lot of talking. As things progressed, he got so that sometimes he was not making sense. And sometimes I just go over and sit there and watch television with him, because there was nothing else that could be done. But he always regarded me as a great friend, I'm sure, and I did him too, yeah.
Well, anybody that would volunteer to help you do that concession cleanup, is a good guy. So no, he's definitely missed. I've heard so many great stories about him, in his discipline and how he was with students. And I mean, it's just, you can't think of Gary Lunny and not smile, in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, Todd Carson wrote a tribute about him, and it was just beautiful. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said a lot of very insightful, good things about Gary Lunny.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. A special man, and a lot of people on the podcast have talked about him, and I want to continue to do that. Mr. Carson, tell me about your business career. I believe you were involved in sales of some kind. I learned this quite clearly when I sold candy with you at the Rose Parade when I was a junior high kid. And you let me tell you, you are a salesman. I couldn't believe the energy, the optimism. You're selling candy bars at the Rose Parade, but you look like you've been doing it for 40 years. So, were you always a salesman?
No, in fact, for a while I wrote technical manuals for a company called Matic Data Systems, and they wrote software for printing companies. And they kind of went out of business and suggested I move on. And I went to work at a printing company, and I was just running their software because I knew it. And the owner says, Dave, you'll never make enough money running our software. You better try sales. I said, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. I was such a rookie. I could not believe I knew nothing about printing. The first guy I talked to, he said, well, I'm trying to do this magazine, and I think it has to have an even number of pages. Is that right? Well, yes, that's right. But I didn't know. I said, well, I'll find out for you. He must have thought this guy is out to lunch. But I found that I caught on about printing as time went on. If I just made enough phone calls, I'd eventually make a sale. And I found out that if I could make 75 phone calls, somewhere in that 75, somebody would invite me over and I'd make a sale. So that was pretty much my sales career. When I went back to Kare Youth League, I left Matic Data Systems, but Mr. Hampton got the idea, and it was a great idea, of a fundraiser of selling Nestle candy bars at the Rose Parade. And so all of us went out there and did it. Covered the whole parade route and so forth. had a quota to sell, and lots of pressure on you. You got to sell these things. Ken Drain was our group leader, and we would stay there after the parade was over and try to sell people going on the buses because we had to make our quota. Well, by that time of day, my voice was gone and so forth. And I always have thought it was very special. We were walking back to the car, and Ken says, come on in, I'll buy you a Coke. And that Coke was the most wonderful Coke I've ever had. And the fact that he would do that really said a lot to me about Ken Drain. But then everybody hated it. Nobody wanted to sell candy at the Rose Parade.
I'm still scarred for life. I can't even turn the parade on anymore. I'm like, no, too many cold mornings selling to strangers. But I did make some money. I'll say that.
Well, that's good. John Martin, smart man that he is, he was on the Pasadena City College School Board. So he knew somebody who ran the big grandstands. And so he talked to that lady. Her name was Cindy Ribley. And he said, could I sell you your grandstand? And she said, well, okay, what's it for? It's for Kare Youth League. So that's a good cause. Well, did you ever sell in the grandstands yourself, or did you always stay in the street?
Oh, well, both. I was in the grandstands. A few of us took up there with us. Todd said, go with my dad.
Okay. Yeah, well, selling in the grandstand is so much easier than selling on the streets.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't remember why, but because so many people didn't want to do it, I think it just died, and we stopped doing it as a fundraiser. Well, I said to myself, whether I'm selling for Kare Youth League or selling for myself, that's a way to make some money. Oh, yeah. And I said, anytime I can make $300 before breakfast, I'm in for it.
Yeah.
So I went up there and I would make $300 before going home for breakfast. And I hated the idea of getting in my car and going out there. But once I got in the grandstands, it was like a different me took over.
Yeah. Yeah.
I started, and you and other people have said, you become a different person up there. What's the problem? What's the deal? Well, I don't know. I just did. And for a while, I was, well, I say the top salesman because I was the only salesman, but sometimes people would want to help. Well, Todd would want to help and so forth. And I always sold a lot more than Todd or anybody until Melissa came along.
Well, yeah, come on. I mean, that goes without saying. The lady, I same thing with circus tickets. People are more willing to buy from the young ladies. Let's just,
So she outsold me, and I said, that's not fair. I worked so hard at this. And anyway, I kept it up until I went in to talk to Cindy Ribley one time because I had to get a special pass to get in her grandstands. And it slipped out, or I said it. I don't know what. That I think she said, "What is this money going for?" And I said, "Well, it's helping me put my daughter through college." And she says, "Oh no, it's not. You can sell for Kare Youth League, but you're not going to sell for yourself." I said, "Okay, I'll sell for Kare Youth League," and I continued and turned it in and so forth. But eventually, what finally stopped it was. The Rose Parade people wouldn't let anybody in the grandstands. What was it that was going on? They were afraid of terrorists blowing up the grandstands and so forth. So
could have been, yeah. After 9/11, I think a lot of things changed.
Yeah, maybe that was 9/11. But anyway, they told me I couldn't sell anymore, and they had the authority, so I stopped selling. Like you, when I turn the television on to watch the Rose Parade, I'm looking around to see if I can see anybody selling stuff. But
yeah. I remember I was a junior high kid, and Todd took us. We were going to sell candy with my dad, and we go up in the stands, and it's like, yeah, people, $2 a bar or whatever, and it was You'd be up in the stands, and yeah, you were a completely different person. I'll never forget. It was Wisconsin and UCLA. The whole game. It was the first Rose Parade I went to with you, and you were coming up with all kinds of things. You were telling first of all, you're like, I hate when there's a local team, USC or UCLA, because we want out-of-state people to come to the Rose Parade.
Right.
And they'll spend more money. I'm thinking, wow, okay. And you told the Wisconsin fans, you're like, can you guys believe the UCLA fans came and squirted all these bleachers down with water before the game? They're trying to get an advantage on you guys. I mean, even though you're a UCLA grad, you were siding with the Wisconsin fans just to sell some candy. I thought it was hilarious.
I don't remember that one exactly, but yeah, I was just desperate to do whatever.
Well, it's a rule, ladies and gentlemen. It's a rule. When you come to Pennsylvania, you have to buy candy at 8 a.m. It's a rule for the Rose Parade.
Yeah.
I was like, I could never do that stuff. I am definitely not that outgoing. So you were a different person, sir, on those New Year's Day mornings.
Yeah, no, it was, and I could just, as I was getting out of the car, which I hated driving down there at that time of the morning, and it's dark and it's cold, as I was walking toward the grandstand, as I got closer, I began to get pumped up. And I'd say to people going by, you want to buy a candy bar? It was crazy.
Wow. It's like a football player coming out of the tunnel, just ready to go. That is awesome. So Mr. Carson, you eventually, I don't know how long ago it was, but you eventually left one of the jobs or the career that you had, and you became really involved, I think, on the Kare Youth League staff. What exactly was your position? Because I remember you doing a lot of like tours around the campus and such. What was your official job title with Kare Youth League not too long ago?
Well, the thing that I was supposed to be doing, turn it off, was raising money. And we took people on tours because we hooked up with this outfit that says if you take people on a tour and sell your program, you can call them a week later and ask them to give, and they're more likely to give. So we tried those tours, quite unsuccessful. But my job was raising money. And I think if I had to make a list of what I wanted to do in life and what I would not want to do in life, selling is at the bottom of the list.
Wow, that's crazy.
But
fooled me.
Yeah, but John Martin came and he said, we've got this position. There's actually Mrs. Orsborn was moving into the principal, and she was the director of development or something like that. And says, if you want to do it, you can do it. Well, I would have done anything to get back working at Kare Youth League, anything. Yeah. So I said, sure, I'll do it. And had some success, I guess, and have been doing it ever since. I only work from home part-time now, but let's see, we got 4 grants since we started this year. Now, to get 4 out of 4 is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But there are people I dealt with before, and so I kind of knew how to approach them, and that worked out. But now David Drew is trying to learn the fundraising business, and he's finding out it's not as easy as it looks.
No, fundraising is tough, no matter what the cause is. I mean, asking people basically for their hard-earned money to support something, it's difficult. I mean, everyone, it seems like everyone has a good reason, a good cause, and God bless the people that do donate and things of that nature, because Kare Youth League has had tremendous success with a lot of the donors. I mean, Diver Center, the new area, the new field in Irwindale. I mean, all of those couldn't be done without outside help, or maybe from the inside, whatever it is. So I think Kare Youth League is extremely blessed to have so many people that have contributed over the years.
Oh, yes, for sure. And when you mentioned Mr. Stivers, that was what's called a transformational gift. He gave us enough money to actually transform the way we could go about things. Never could have built it. Well, you never say never.
Yeah.
But it was with his help to build the gymnasium, Stivers Center, and a lot of his money went to build Kare Park. And a lot of his money helps pay the payroll. So it was a transformational gift.
Yes, and it quite a blessing, came out of nowhere, from what I understand, and it's just very awesome to see all of the developments at Rio, at Kare Irwindale. I mean, a lot has changed in a positive way. Things are looking great. For you, when you left, I know we talked a little bit about desires of your heart and everything. I know it's something incredibly desirable for you was to work for Kare Youth League, work at Kare Youth League.
Yes.
You have these other jobs, and we all got to do what we got to do to pay the bills. But did you kind of look at it as, okay, God finally gave me or paved a pathway for me to live out my dream of working for Kare Youth League?
Absolutely. That was exactly when John Martin asked me if I was interested. That's the thought that went through my mind. Of course I'm interested.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been all fundraising since then.
Absolutely. Well, a few things. The Carson house in Covina, it's quite legendary. I always appreciate the Carsons being out in the East because I grew up not too far from there in Glendora, and actually don't live far from there now. But it was nice knowing that other people commuted from Covina. What exactly brought you guys to that house by Wingate Park? Because I know it's at one point you guys were living in Arcadia. So what brought you guys eastward?
Well, the house was on the market. Probably Philip Ostergaard, who's in the real estate, told us about it. And we said, well, it's big enough for us. And it's close to Wingate Park. Let's go for it. And so I don't remember how we came up with a down payment and so forth, but one way or another we did. And we've been here ever since.
Yeah, it's a great house, a great place. So many memories. Again, watching football with Mark, eating pizza in between games. We were refereeing at Wingate Park, sleeping sleepovers down in those club rooms you guys built down in the basement.
Yeah.
All kinds of old gear down there. I mean, it's an awesome place. So many memories. Mr. Carson, I want to talk to you now about your 5 kids and give you each an opportunity to talk about each one of them. We've already kind of talked about them a little bit in the sense, Dave Carson Jr. is a pastor. Mark and Todd, phenomenal coaches, 2 of the best coaches I think Rio's ever had, Kare Youth League's ever had. Your youngest daughter, Melissa, worked in the White House, in politics, and then Mrs. Horton is just a phenomenal teacher. You have to be proud of each one of them. But what can you tell me about each one of them individually? And I'll let you talk about whoever you want in whatever order.
Well, this isn't probably exactly what you were anticipating hearing. Like we've talked about Christina Horton now. She'll come over and we'll talk for 5 or 10 or half an hour. And I am just so amazed at how many things she has read and what she knows and so forth. I'm even more impressed by the way she has learned to teach composition, because teaching people to write is the most difficult thing I think that ever happened. But she seems to have success at that, and I've learned a little bit about her system. Just a couple anecdotes about her. Let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. One year for Christmas, I got each of them for their stocking a library card. And I was shocked to see how excited they were to get a library card. So they each got a library card, and we started making a weekly trip up to Arcadia Library, and we'd go around and pick out the books they wanted to read and take them home. And I told them, if you read, 10 minutes a day or read 30 pages or whatever, we'll stop at the donut shop and you get a donut. But if you don't do your reading, other people will get the donuts and you won't. Well, one time Christina hadn't done her reading and she fessed up and said, I didn't do mine. And I said, okay, well, no donut for you. She says that she was surprised because she thought sure her brothers were cheating. Telling me that they had done the reading and they hadn't. But she says it was an important lesson anyway to realize you're not a victim of circumstances. She hadn't done the reading, she paid the price, and it made an impression. So that's my story about Christina.
Great story.
Dave, a story that I've told often about Dave. He went on a summer trip with me when he was, fourth grade, just a little tiny youngster. Mr. Hampton thought it would be good for him to go on the trip with us. And so we were at, come on, what's the big cemetery in Washington, D.C.?
Arlington.
What was it?
Arlington,
yeah, we were at Arlington Cemetery. And he was riding on my shoulders. And so as we were walking up to the tomb and so forth, I said, see, all those white crosses out there, each one represents a man who died in battle. His comment was, boy, they sure died in straight lines. Those crosses are perfectly aligned. And I thought, well, there's his maturity level. They died in straight lines.
Wow, that is.
Yeah. Dave is a special kind of a guy, much different than the rest of the Carsons, because he thinks before he talks. You have a conversation with him, and you ask him a question, he doesn't answer until he has thought through the right answer from his perspective. Sometimes it's a little annoying to me. Come on. But no, he's that kind of guy, and he thinks very deeply and does a good job as a pastor out there. He's taken under his wing some of the people out there, they're not connected with Kare Youth League at all, but he has become truly their pastor, and so very good. And then Todd, well, you know Todd as well as I do. Maybe not as well as I do, but you know Todd very well. He's starting a business. Has he told you about that?
Yeah.
And oh boy, I hope that pays off, because then he'll come down here to coach basketball next year. I can hardly wait. Got to admit, he's got a dream situation up there in Reed, California. Mm-hmm. He and his son get up early mornings and they go fishing. Now, how would you ever do that around here? No way. They catch fish and they bring it home and they eat them. That's the way a boy should grow up. And he has lots of time with his children. One of my favorite memories of Todd is the year you and he went to the College World Series. He came back and he says, Todd and I never stopped laughing from the time we got there till we got back. It was just a blast for the whole time. And I thought that was a perfect outing for Todd to go with his friend Matt to the College World Series. Too bad you couldn't have stayed a couple extra days and seen the championship. But
yeah. That was 10 amazing days with Todd, and it all started. That was a gift to me from him, and we helped split the costs on some other things. But his idea, he made it happen. Just so grateful for him for that memory. And it, we landed. We drove 3 hours in the wrong direction, around. I mean, it was all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, Todd's a special man in my life, and those were 10 of the best days too. That just hanging out and laughing with him.
Yeah. I know you've got a good sense of humor. Todd used to have a good sense of humor, but the two of you together, I guess, just had a lot to laugh about. So
we get each other. We have a very similar mindset.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and then there's Mark. I always said, pound for pound, Mark was the toughest football player that Rio Hondo ever had. He was so small, but he was so gutsy. He'd get in front of those big guys, try to tackle them, get knocked off, and so forth. So pound for pound, I always thought he was the toughest. Naturally, I don't know others. But the way he treats his players and his philosophy of coaching just impressed me so much. He used to coach the Cardinals out here in Wingate Park. I don't know what age, fifth grade or something like that.
Tigers, wasn't it? Wasn't it the Tigers?
What?
Wasn't it the Tigers or?
Tigers.
Yeah, it was Tigers. That's right.
Dave coached the Cardinals.
Okay, yeah.
I want to get Mark in trouble now. His Tiger listeners out there. No, he was a Tiger anyway.
He was the Tigers. But the things that he would tell us that he did to prep those guys for the game. I mean, he'd bring home their uniforms and have mom sewing a flag on them or something like that. So when they showed up to the game, it was always something new and fresh. And he'd say, be there a half hour before, because when the other team comes dragging in, we want to already be doing our calisthenics and so forth. Yeah. I think it really was a big part of his winning. But yeah, we're so proud of Mark and what he's doing. Very good. And then Melissa, she's our politician, but having worked in the White House and then in the State Department, she says, I want nothing to do with politics. I am not interested. Although just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I asked her, do you miss your days in the White House? And she says, yeah, Dad, I do a little bit. But she went to UCLA, studied political science, heard about a program that where she could be an intern in the White House. So she went and did that, came back, and decided she wanted to work there. So she somehow got a job with a congressman and from this area. And so she was working there for this congressman. We went back to visit her. And she said, Dad, I hate this job. I hate this job. I got to get out of this job. And shortly thereafter, she called me. And she was almost in tears. She called me on the phone. She says, Dad, I got to get out of that office. It's just a poisonous place. And I said, but I don't have another job. I don't know where I'm going to go. So I said, well, Melissa, we need a miracle. And that's where I left it. Because that's what we needed. And about 2 weeks later, she got a call from a really quality speechwriter in the White House who wanted her to come and interview for a job. And she went and she says, they asked me how come I wanted to work in the White House or something. And she says, I use the word calling. I believe it's my calling. And that really impressed this man. His name is Bill McGurn. He's a great Christian man. And she ended up working for him. Had a lot of really interesting things happen to her in the White House. Has Todd ever told you about the time when he went there and got surrounded by the Secret Service?
Yeah, it was a summer trip actually, and maybe Todd got stopped by the Secret Service multiple times, but the one I remember it was me and Todd and I think 4 boys on a summer trip, and Melissa's giving us a tour of the White House. The president wasn't there or anything, but I got to stand in the door of the Oval Office and look in and be like, wow, this is it. Walked us all over the place through a rose garden or something, and we took a wrong turn, and out of nowhere, these special forces guys, Secret Service, stopped in and said, "Hey, you guys." I mean, I have no idea where they came from. They just out of nowhere, and they're like, "You guys are in the wrong area. You can't be here." And she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I remember thinking to Todd, like, "Wow, where did these guys come from? I didn't see them."
Yeah. I've always wondered that too, because I've heard Melissa say and other people say they're all over the place, but you never see them unless they want you to see them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this one time, kind of like that, but Todd went back to visit his sister and talked to her on the phone. She says, "I'll get off around 5 or 5:30 and I'll meet you outside the White House by such and such gate." So he's standing out there waiting. Well, she didn't get off on time.
Uh-oh.
So he's standing there waiting and waiting. And pretty soon he looks around and there's these 4 Secret Service guys. "Hey, what are you doing here? You can't stand out here." He said, "Well, my sister works up there. I'm waiting for my sister." He said, "Well, could you show us your driver's license?" And he had left his driver's license at the apartment.
Todd
Todd
always does this. Always.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Always.
So he felt like he was in trouble, but I guess one of the guys says, "Okay, we'll go ask the guard to call your sister and see if she's going to come down." And it all worked out, but kind of a scary thing for Todd, I think. Hauling off to the Moscow. Yeah.
Oh, Todd. Yeah. Mr. Forgetful. I love him, but I tease him all the time for that. Yeah. I mean, just an incredible, I mean, for your 5 kids and what they've all accomplished and what they've done. I mean, I don't know who else has that kind of resume of their children. So they're continuing to do great things. Cool to hear about Mark and the toughness. I mean, what better guy to lead RHP football than Mark?
Yeah.
And I remember when Melissa was in the White House and I was like, wow, someone we know works here. It was very cool.
Yeah.
Mr. Carson, is there any truth to this? I heard from Todd and Mark that let's say when they were in high school and say they were going to play Poly, that you would wake them up on Friday morning and say, "Time to get up, guys. There's about 20 guys at Pasadena Poly scared to death right now that they have to play Rio Hondo tonight."
Yeah, that was always when I wake up. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah,
I love that.
That was fun.
That is very, very cool. Well, Mr. Carson, I really appreciate you doing this. This has been a lot of fun going down memory lane, talking about a lot of things, your kids and the great things you've done. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to say as we kind of wrap it up here?
Well, I would only like to say that if you had to figure out why the children turned out as well as they did, number one, it's their mother. Excuse me. You know her. Wow, get all choked up. You know her. You know what she's like. She has been just a wonderful mother. And then Kare Youth League. Kare Youth League makes a big, big difference in the life. It made a difference in your life, I'm sure, and so forth. So just give a shout out to Kare Youth League and to my wife. Parting here.
Very well said, sir. Well, I wish you many good memories ahead with grandkids and such. I'm sure they keep you plenty busy as well. So give my best to Mrs. Carson. And again, looking forward to putting this episode out. It has been my privilege and my honor, Mr. Carson, to chat with you.
Well, it's been a great honor to me too, and I appreciate the opportunity. When I would hear those other podcasts, I'd say, well, I hope you never ask me, because I don't think I'd like to do that.
Oh, no, it's been wonderful.
Todd said you should do it.
Yes, I'm glad he pushed you. Well, thank you so much. We will talk to you soon. We'll see you down the road.
Okay, well, thank you.
Well, I said it beforehand, but what an honor to chat with Mr. Dave Carson Sr. I've talked with him a time or two over the years, just in passing by usually, or talking about his kids, who I have great admiration for, every one of them. Melissa was a few years older than me in high school. I was a junior high kid. Mrs. Horton was a great teacher for me. Mark and I refereed a lot of games and had these great visions for what Rio Hondo Prep football could be. Todd and I have chatted a lot about sports over the years and become extremely great friends. And Dave Carson Jr., can't thank him enough for being there for my family when my mom passed away, and him stepping forward to do the eulogy and speak at the funeral and such. So just what can you say? And then Mrs. Carson, you can't say enough about these people, just amazing, amazing people that I hope you guys really enjoyed that. I know the audio was a little tough at times, but hopefully you were able to get the points that were said there and to think of some of those great memories and messages and things. That was just an honor. And I hope the family enjoys that as much as I did. Much love for the Carson family. So thank you so much for joining us today, guys. I think it's a great way to take us into the weekend to get recharged and relaxed a little bit and look forward to next week. Here we are in September and we're rolling right along. More shows next week, of course, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. After that week off, I'm pretty recharged and just putting together more episodes here weekly to record with some people that we could stockpile for our Friday episodes. And of course, Mondays, Mr. Carson's son, Mark Carson, will be here to join us during the high school football season to chat about Rio Hondo Prep football. And we're going to continue to do that. So a lot of great things ahead for the Get Home Safe podcast. Appreciate all the support, all the people from Rio Hondo Prep, Kare Youth League. Nothing but love for you guys. And to the people who aren't affiliated, who are maybe learning a few things about some of the leadership from Kare Youth League and such, it's an honor to do so. And I hope everyone enjoys these podcasts in moving forward. So that's enough for me. I'm going to take a breather for a few days. I'll be back with you on Monday to talk Rio Hondo Prep football and hopefully talk about another victory for the Cares and led by Mark Carson. There'll be plenty to chat about. We'll break down some more plays on film here if you want to watch on YouTube or watch our podcast on YouTube and such. But I need a breather. I need a break. Been a busy week of podcasting and other things. Mr. Carson Sr., thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Really, really mean that. And to everyone else out there, thanks for stopping by and listening today. Guys, have a great weekend. But as always, no matter what you're doing, whether you're out on the town or round in third base, get home safe.